said, I asked her, I said, what'd you expect? If you want to see an enshrined body, go see Lennon or Stalin. There's nothing in that tomb. He just spent a few evenings there anyway. He didn't need a lot of creature comforts, right? He was just passing through. And that empty tomb proclaims an eternal testimony. The first post-resurrection announcement is a simple one, but to the point. He's risen. He's not here. And the message of the resurrection and the empty tomb has resonated since then around the world. Here's a young couple out in a cemetery somewhere standing beside a small pile of dirt as their infant child is being laid to rest. Where is their hope? It's in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Here's an elderly man or elderly woman saying goodbye to a lifelong mate. Where is their hope? And again, when I use the word hope, I mean biblical hope, things not yet seen but assured of. It's the resurrection. You know, one of these days, unless we die in an accident, some doctor somewhere is going to come in while we're sitting in that fashionable little gown, comfortable anyway, and say, I've got some bad news for you. How can a person get up from there and leave with any sense of hope at all? Through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Here's a person that's being crushed by life itself, misunderstood, despised, and hated on every turn. And as they sing on Hee Haw, if it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. How does that person continue? Through the promise of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now, I told them at 8:30, I don't know if I read this somewhere and forgot it or if it's original. But I have a statement here that's worth remembering. You may be having a good day. You may be having a bad day. But you've yet to have your best day. You hear that? The best day is really coming. And it is when we shed death and sin and stand face to face with Jesus Christ. Now look at the proclamation in verse 7 and verse 8. In verse 8, they're told to go and tell the disciples and Peter. You notice that? Charlie Davis this morning, he said, I'm glad you mentioned that because when I read that, I thought, what? I was going to ask you. Wasn't Peter one of the disciples? Why do you think he singled out him? Because he denied him not once, twice, but 3 times. There is a message right here. The person that fails Jesus the most needs to hear the gospel more than anyone else other than a lost person. And I want to tell you something, friends. As a church, we're doing a pitiful job here. Here's a person, their life has been racked by divorce, and they're down and they're out. And what do? We come by and we give them a good swift kick. Here's a Christian man, Christian woman fall flat on their face in some sin, and I'm not justifying sin, but what do when we run across them? We put our foot in their back and mash them down just as deeply as we can. We have a dog theology. When I was growing up, I had an old dog by the name of Joe, and that was the best-natured dog. He was a good dog. And one day, another old dog had come around, and he started hanging around the house. We were not far from the house, and my daddy was ripping down the road like he usually does, doing 25 miles an hour. And that old stray dog run right in front of him, and he hit him, and he broke him up in the back, but he didn't kill him. And I was riding in the back of that truck, and I looked, and I couldn't believe what old Joe did. You know what old Joe did? He jumped on that dog, And he ate him up as he was crippled lying there in the road. You know, I've come to the conclusion since then that old Joe was a Baptist. That's the way we do our folks, isn't it? You know, Peter failed. Listen, Peter failed miserably. And what Jesus tell him, you make sure you tell old Peter that I'm not in this tomb and that I'll meet you in Galilee just like I told you that I would. You can depend on and count on my word. And later when he meets him, he's asked 3 times if he loves him, and he's told to feed his sheep 3 times. He restores him. The only man, woman, boy, and girl that is beyond restoration are dead ones. You go and you tell, especially old Peter, because he needs to hear it. But now look at something else here. And this is easy to miss. We're told that they left and they said nothing because they were afraid. Now, I know that he told them primarily to go and tell the disciples, and we know that later they did encounter them and they did tell them. But just look at what it says. They didn't say anything because they were afraid. Why do you think that's so important? Is this something that just happened so long ago? Don't want to embarrass you. Somebody else want to give him a hand right quick. Let's pray for her. Father, as we bow before you again today, we pray for Miss Margie. We don't know what her physical condition is right now, but just pray that you would strengthen and encourage her, that you would give her health and a sense of your presence. Father, just watch over her, care for her. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm almost through, but I do want to stress to you how they failed to say anything. One of my favorite stories that has to do with telling the good news of all places is found in the book of 2 Kings. Israel has been laid siege to, and the people inside are starving to death. They're to the point that they try to have sandal stew. They boil their sandals and try to make stew out of it. Yum, yum. And it even gets to the point that a mother eats her own child. Now that's desperation, isn't it? But there are 4 lepers. And they're sitting in the gate, probably sitting in the gate because since they're lepers, they wouldn't allow them in the city. And they start discussing their alternatives. And I said, you know, we can sit here and we can die. Or we could get up and go meet the enemy. Who knows? And that's what they say. Who knows? Maybe God will keep us alive. So they get up and they go out. And we're not told the details. But God had caused fear to run through the camp of the enemies of God. And they hightailed it out. And it must have been about breakfast time because they left the food and the bacon was still sizzling in the skillet. And these 4 lepers, they get to the first tent and it's like a Shoney's breakfast bar. And I mean, they eat their fill and their clothes are ragged, so hey, their clothes everywhere, they put them a new suit on. They go to another one or two and they eat all they can hold. They're enjoying all this food that is still sizzling hot on the campfire. The provisions of God. But then we have this statement. Finally, they said to each other, listen to this, this is not right. This is a day of good news. and we aren't sharing it with anyone. The historical setting. People in the city are literally starving to death. There's ample food there. And they say this isn't right, that we just enjoy the blessings of God and we don't tell those starving folks. If we wait until morning, some calamity will certainly fall upon us. Come on, let's go back and tell the people at the palace. That is a message about the gospel of Jesus Christ. You see, there's a world, quite literally in the shadow of this church, that is starving to death in need of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And when we just sit and enjoy what we're doing is not right. Are you sharing His message this morning? Let's pray. Father, as we bow in your presence this morning, we praise you and we thank you. We thank you, Father, for what you've done and are doing in Jesus Christ. And I pray, Father, that you would just help us to realize the urgency of the moment and the need to be sharing the good news with a lost and dying world. And Father, if there are those here this morning that are lost, if there are those of yours that need a renewed zeal, if there are those that need to make some commitment, some decision, Lord, may your will be done. In Jesus' name.